to the last segment of the show and the week on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. Hope you guys have enjoyed the show thus far. I really did as well. But this last guy, we've talked a lot about secondary players. We talked about how vital they could be. This guy is definitely the most vital on one of the best secondaries in the league. And when I think about pure secondary players, kind of positionless secondary players, so to speak, this guy definitely comes to mind. So without further ado, let's transition to the fantasy player profile of Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward, when he came into the league, was going to be the face of the Browns secondary for years to come. And it's really wonderful to see that as the Browns are starting to build their secondary a little bit more, because they know they have a dominant pass rush. It's really fantastically fascinating to see how Denzel Ward has become kind of this leader and solid foundation of this team. And when I look at all these younger guys, Martin Emerson, Greg Newsome, Grant Delpit and Greedy Williams when they're healthy, I really think the reason that they're so solid as well is because their play is elevated and predicated on whatever Denzel Ward does. Because even though he doesn't play at the safety position as much, even though he's not necessarily, the rangiest, the fastest, his intuition can be trusted. Without further ado, let's jump right into what makes him so special. 433.2 fantasy points accrued in his career for Mr. Denzel Ward. 91.5 was his best season in 2022. Now, 11 pass defended last season, 2 interceptions, 1 tackle for loss. 17.5% ball hawk rate. Ball hawk rate being the amount of times a defender is near the ball and makes a play on it. Last season also, he only allowed 31 receptions for 290 yards. In 6 years, he has 15 interceptions, 99 pass breakups, and elected to 3 Pro Bowls. And I think that in a Browns defense that really asks a lot out of its secondary, because, the pass rush is so dominant, and they always expect that they can generate tons of pressure off the edge for this defense to generate, negative plays. The secondary definitely has a lot of freedom. And I think that having someone like Denzel Ward as your top corner really allows you to key in on the development of so many different players and attuning them to developing in so many different ways in terms of how they can play. Because I think that the Cleveland Browns are one of the top teams in terms of mixing up different schemes and different looks. You can have so much more variety when you know that your defense is so dominant. And Jim Schwartz, kudos to him as well. Kudos to him for allowing these players to really thrive in many different ways because of their freedom to choose how they interpret their positions. Now let's talk about how that might potentially be a negative. Not necessarily for Denzel Ward. I could be talking more about the secondary as a whole, how their style of play might affect them. I think when there is a lot of freedom in how your secondary plays, I definitely believe that it hinders especially a young group. When I think of guys like Delpit and Greedy Williams, these are guys who have suffered a lot of injuries, have not necessarily seemed to feel that much in their careers, and most importantly, are playing the most important position in defense, at least in the secondary, in terms of safety. And so I do tend to feel that the Browns might need to consider some safe coverages, some coverages that all these players are comfortable with. And Denzel Ward might be hurt most because that's what he preaches. He preaches versatility. Think about Denzel Ward as a smoother cover man in either man or zone, slot or outside than him. That being said, I think that what's really fun about the laxness of interpretive defending is that Denzel Ward really keying on helping these young guys grow. Because it's not just about stats when you're a corner. It's about being intuitive to everyone around you and making sure that communication is key. Denzel Ward, in a more lax system, has the opportunity to do that a lot more. Now, considering the fact that I'm not as worried about the Browns secondary as many different teams, I feel that if they choose the safer route, if, say, they really key in on coverages that are well-known by players on this team, I honestly think that anyone's will be going down and they'll be no less productive because of the fact that the Browns secondary knows, no matter what, they have the guys to back everyone else. But here's where Denzel Ward really comes into play. It's definitely going to be in terms of how he sets the tone with it. Because Cleveland Browns can come out and say, hey, we'll stick with man-to-man. It's what we know. Or we'll stick with zone. It's what we know. If Denzel Ward doesn't play aggressively, and if he doesn't set the tone for continuing this narrative of going with the flow and being a safer team on the back end and being that more connected, then that's where all the stats could be lost. That's where this defense could kind of fall apart at the seams. However, if they choose the more lax option and Denzel Ward plays aggressively, you got to make sure that these younger guys realize that they're more tertiary to the whole. And that's the kind of conundrum that, a lot of this is going to be predicated on. If Jim Schwartz says, hey guys, I think we need to kind of shore up and make sure that these young guys getting into the system really don't have to focus too much on picking and choosing how they want to play. We need to simplify this up. I really think that it's going to be detrimental to some, especially Ward, but helpful to others, whereas the laxness allows Denzel Ward to lead in a way that says, hey guys, the cornerback position doesn't have to be so cookie cutter. It can be a lot more versatile. You can be asked to wear a lot of different hats. And so, at the end of the day, I'm comfortable saying that the Browns are always going to be a team that can rely on its secondary, but how it plays is going to be the key. Because, say someone young from the secondary gets injured. Say Delpit goes down again. Who's to say that if this more simple defense gets implemented and Delpit's out for X amount of time, when he gets back, that he can immediately be integrated into that system? Delpit might want to say, hey coach, I want to choose how I want to play because I don't feel comfortable coming back into the system after injury and doing X amount of work and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, Denzel Ward is going to be the face of that. Either movement, Denzel Ward, whether positively or negatively, is going to impact how the Browns interpret their secondary. And it's also all up to the pass rush. If they're going to remain consistent, then there may not need to be as much worry or as much fretfulness in the secondary as there could be. Because the Browns' pass rush is what the defense is predicated on. It's not just the secondary who just shores it up in the back. It's the pass rush that makes sure that the secondary has an easy job. And so, if the job is easy, then you might not have to even worry about certain players fitting into the scheme. You can just go ahead and do what you do. In terms of Denzel Ward and fantasy, I really think that there's nothing to worry about because the Browns are going to be the Browns. They're going to be one of the better defenses in the league. It might have to be as well. Who knows? But Denzel Ward certainly is someone who I believe should be considered in fantasy drafts in IDP because of the way he plays the position and the way he understands the position. It's not just all about, dominance in individuality. It's all about balance, and I think he's going to find that, and the Browns secondary will be just fine. But that will just about do it for this edition of today's show. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe to the show and the network if you so choose. Consider leaving a tip or donation at the link, gsmc.cloud. My name is Christopher Shepard. Thank you guys for tuning in again this week. Happy Friday to all. Happy weekend to all.